I did something that no American has ever done before. I got a job working for one of the most well-respected designers in the entire world, Mr. Dries Van Noten. In 2014, I did something that no American had ever done before. I got a job working for a designer named Dries Van Noten. Now, Dries is one of what they call the Antwerp Six. And that is a group of designers that came to prominence in the 80s. Fashion was really done out of like 3 or 4 kind of international hubs: New York, Milan, Paris, and London. And then suddenly, this kind of ragtag group of Flemish kids turned up on the scene. Andy Meulemeister, Walter van Beirendonck, Dirk van Sen, Dirk Bickenberg, it's a jewelry designer, I think her name was Jane something, I can't remember, and Dries. And they really set a new tone for what fashion could really be considered. And Dries's business has become one of the biggest and most well-respected brands in the entire world. And I wanted to work there. For those who don't know me, my name is Spencer Phipps. I am the founder of the American heritage brand Phipps. So right after school, I was very fortunate. I got a job at Marc Jacobs and I worked there for many, many years. But I was looking for the next gig, right? And it took me years to track down someone's email address at the company. They are very, very hard to get a hold of. So I managed to get this email address for somebody that worked there, and I sent an email with a portfolio and just saying, hey, I was interested. To my surprise, she got back to me. She said, if you can get to Antwerp, we would love to meet you. It just so happened that at the time, I was going to be in London. I extended my trip and went off to Antwerp. And the meeting went shockingly well. The HR guy basically said, hey, man, it sounds like you got the job. And I freaked out. I lost my mind. I did not believe that was going to happen at all. I remember leaving on such a high, and I went around Antwerp and I bought everybody chocolates and stuff for back home. Cut to a year later, we had the contract, the move happened, I did all the things, and I moved to Antwerp. In hindsight, totally crazy, right? I had no idea what to expect. I never really spent any time there. I didn't know any Flemish people. Such a culture shock, right? New York City at Halloween to this beautiful, austere, very open, pin drop silent office. All of these very elegant, like Northern European people, and I'm there in my dirty lifeguard hoodie. Just came off the plane like what even happened with like one suitcase. I went to this giant office. They have this crazy facility, 5-6 story warehouse thing right on the water that is super intimidating. I remember telling my mom straight away, it was like, every day's fashion week here. I was the first American, like I said, and I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't really have any sort of cultural gauge on what was about to happen. I didn't speak a word of Flemish. I still don't really, but immediately put me to work. One of the first pieces I designed was immediately when I got there. It was this floor-length military coat with this fur collar and then just like covered in embroidery. Immediately was shot for a cover of Another Man magazine, I believe, with Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy? Now, one thing that I learned immediately from Dries was the way that his mind works in terms of taste. It's all about opposites and mixing opposites, sort of ugly, pretty, high-low, things that really upset you versus something quite beautiful. From there, we just kind of took off. The next collection was all about really, really gilded, beautiful Hollywood 1930s glamour, sort of gold embroideries and things, but then just done with this bit of like kitschiness to it. Some of the pieces in there were some of the best selling, first of all, and let's be honest, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Some of the best sold, but also some of my favorites. The idea was really to make like a, sort of Hawaiian shirt kind of style thing, but mixing a really nice print, something a little garish, something a little weird with like the fake sequins. This is one of the first ones that I worked on in that season. Dries is a lovely man. He's very, very serious about his craft. He's very knowledgeable. One would argue maybe a little on the spectrum or OCD or just kind of compulsive about what he loves, which is his garden. He loves his work and his fabrics and stuff, and I learned so many lessons from him in the process. One thing I really learned from Dries was to push yourself, to create things that you've never seen before, because if it already exists, then what's the point of making it? There was a collection that was all about fiber arts, right, and mixing different textiles. I'd found this tapestry, basically this like sofa cushion or something. It started this conversation about how do you make that feel modern? And that was to mix it with other things and make these sort of sculptural pieces that then sat with very pieces, and that contrast is what makes it feel new. There was a lot of trials of things, right? I would like putting Photoshop collages together of things, or literally throwing embroidery samples on top of vintage pieces. And you would kind of hope by the end of it that you'd have an idea of styling and kind of a feeling. You'd let it sit in your gut. And then from there, you would turn it into palatable things or commercial products or things that make a little bit more sense. There was always this level of pushing the boundaries of especially decoration, design, in terms of like embroidery and patchworks and things like that. And then from there I would go in and sketch, and everything was sketched by hand. I was like, everything was drawn by hand. So I got very, very good at drawing. One of my favorite collections was in the Opera Garnier. It's the big opera house in Paris. And he'd been trying for like 20 years to do a show there. We came up with this whole sort of army of love, military inspired kind of psychedelic trip, but deconstructed and reconstructed. And we did all these patch layouts where we took military badges and different kind of patches and did this kind of sort of hippie art like layouts that I would come up with. This is probably one of the most rare pieces from that crazy opera collection, is this hoodie that's just covered in patches. Like, I probably spent like a month on my hands and knees, like putting these little layouts together and photocopying and mixing and matching and trying to figure out like layouts that were interesting and kind of special. This one was the hoodie, which was at the time the one that I just thought was the coolest one to wear. Yeah, check it out. Not too bad. You know, here it is in the show. There were other like fancier pieces, but this one I just thought was the most like fun to keep in my wardrobe. I never wear it, but I set up a really incredible collaboration that I'm still super proud of. It was one of my favorites. Old graphic designer that did these like psychedelic poster art for the Fillmore Theater in San Francisco at the time, which was like where the Grateful Dead were playing. And I reached out to him. Wes Wilson was his name. He was this little old man and he was so cool. But here's a great photo of him that we sent him a bunch of clothes afterwards, and he sent me this photo after as a sort of thank you. And look at how cute he is. Look, he's great. He's just crushing it so hard. I love that man. Ultimately, it really comes down to, embracing opposites and having them mix in the middle. And Dries is very involved in the whole part of the business. It's not just creative, because ultimately the fashion business is not just creative. It's a huge amount of logistics. If I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't have been able to start Phipps. I think it would have been too much of an abstract experience for me. So I'm extremely grateful to Dries. You know, if you see this, Dries, I appreciate it for taking a chance on this random kid from California and, you know, letting me really just live my dream. I don't know if this is helpful or not. That's just my experience. Hopefully I'm inspiring someone. If it was, like, follow, subscribe. You could do all the things. Follow us on social. We got the company account. We got my account. We got a TikTok channel. We're here. There's a newsletter on the website. There's ways to keep in touch, and you should definitely do that, or not, or whatever. So I'm gonna go check out some flowers.